We're Batman at 89. Hello and welcome once again to the podcast that was, well, formerly called Batman at 89. What should we call it now, Niall? Just Batminute?
Yeah, Batman. I've been calling it Batman. It's just kind of for ages anyway. Just like you get it. And people look at me puzzled and they're like, Batminute, and I'm like, Batminute 89. And they're like, oh, now I get it. Yeah,
I've heard of that one. Yes, but welcome to this very special edition. This wonderful show about a wonderful movie. Today we are analysing. Thank God, not minute by minute. It is Prince's Under the Cherry Moon. And if you're wondering, what does this have to do with Batman? Prince, that's the connection. That's it. That's the sole reason for us doing this. And we've already done Purple Rain. So get on board with the concept, guys.
We're doing this, and then we've go through this one, and then we've got Graffiti Bridge as well to cover. So
yes, that's coming.
Oh
soon.
boy!
And in case you are just tuning in for some bizarre reason, I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
I am the other host, Niall McGowan.
Should we introduce ourselves at this point?
Yeah, feel free.
Oh man, my name is Joel.
I'm Sarah.
And we are special victims of this particular special episode. We do the podcast, Please Don't Send Me into Outer Space. And this, I have to say, this movie is out of this world. No, okay, that was bad. Terrible, sorry.
I will say that, we're coming off Purple Rain, a film that, I once really, really hated that film. Because I was like, Prince in it, he's such an asshole. And he's just he's just horribly abusive to everyone about him. But then, in the rewatch, I was like, there are actually really good things in the film as well. But this is the follow-up where Prince kind of took everything that was redeemable about Purple Rain, threw it out, and then amplified everything I hated about it, and then went, that's the movie.
Yep. I mean, we're going to ruin it slightly for you if you've not watched it, but throughout this movie, Prince is he's an absolute jerk. From beginning to end.
No redemptive features either. It feels weird to say. At least in Purple Rain, he had an abusive dad, so that kind of made you go, oh, at least that there's a reason why he's an asshole. This is just no, he's just an asshole, and that's it. You're just supposed to accept this character, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, I think.
Joel's shaking his head.
Well, I want to apologise for making you watch it, but at the same time, screw you, Niall, for suggesting that I watch it.
I'm assuming Joel's shaking his head because he was like, I love the character, and I thought he was my new role model in life upon watching this film.
I just think, there's just so many layers to what Christopher is all about in here. I just can't wait to get into it because, when it kind of, from now on, when I hear the word character, the first thing I'm going to think of is Christopher.
The quintessential.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna watch other movies and be like, where's the Christopher in this movie?
Who is the Christopher of, I don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy? You'd be scouring, looking.
Well, Christopher Pratt, of course.
Oh, of course, yes, that's the Christopher. Where do we even begin with this?
Well, I suppose we should say that, based on the success of Purple Rain, Prince kind of got a bit of carte blanche with not a sequel. We'll get to the sequel. But, so he did a follow-up, which is sort of within the production history. It was originally supposed to be directed by someone called Mary Lambert. It was kind of acclaimed music director, did a lot of stuff with Prince, and did the videos for Like a Prayer and what was the other ones she did? Like a Prayer, Material Girl and stuff. And she also directed Pet Sematary.
Yeah, so I was going to say, more importantly, she directed both Pet Sematary and Pet Sematary 2. So.
Oh, I did not know there was a 2.
Yeah, and if people, eagle-eared people might remember, eagle-eared people who have listened to all of Batman at 89 might recall that the star of Pet Sematary, Dale Midkiff, was apparently in consideration to play Harvey Dent in that in Batman '89. So like there we go. We're already making connections between this movie and that movie.
Bam.
But then yes, she was supposed to direct it, and then somehow. Prince and her got into a bit of a kerfuffle, and then he directed the movie.
Oh boy!
And thank God.
I mean, can you say he directed it? Really? I mean, he's technically the director, but was anyone doing the job?
I'm thinking he did more than that because, like, apparently it was also written by a woman called Becky Johnson, but she went on to write like Prince of Tides and like 7 Years in Tibet, like really acclaimed movies. And then you listen to the dialogue in this, and it's like, this is awful. Like, this is like some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard in my life. And it's like, I think that Prince used to always do a thing, like he's a bit, he always came off as a bit of an egomaniac, and he would plaster his name everywhere and stuff. But occasionally he would do uncredited backing vocals for things. Yeah. I think that he actually just rewrote the script himself. And then he just didn't take any credit for it. Because it seems like this has been written by, like, a 14-year-old who doesn't know how real people talk. And it's
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think for the first 10 minutes, we were kind of in disbelief. Like, wait, there's going to be more happening, right? There's going to be more content they're discussing. And then at first I didn't know if it was supposed to be funny or not. I was like, oh my gosh, is this the eyes? Yeah.
The mugging. Stop it, Prince. Stop
I suppose maybe we should try to, for people who haven't seen the movie, and if you haven't seen it, then I don't recommend that you do. We'll spoil everything for you.
I'd recommend you listen to this though.
Shortcut. Just listen to this.
We'll do it all. We'll describe it so you don't need to see it. But yeah, it starts off where it was even baffling to me going in cold because it's in black and white, and then it opens up and he's playing piano in some sort of like a Mediterranean vista, or somewhere off by the sea.
Let me stop you 1 second as well. You say it's in black and white. Now, I didn't know that, so when I got hold of this, I had to send you a message, didn't I, Niall, saying, "Have I got the right movie? Is it supposed to be black and white? What's going on?"
The thing is, I thought because it was in the opening scene, there's people going around in very fancy clothes, and there's a guy kind of dressed up in the kind of white tux, so he looks a bit like Bogart in Casablanca. So for a while, I was thinking, oh, this is set in the 1930s or something.
Yeah, he's trying to make Casablanca, isn't he? Prince thinks this is Casablanca.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, later on in the movie, it's no, it's set in 1986.
Yep.
And and then you're like, oh, so why is it in black and white? And the only reason it's in black and white is just because I bet Prince just thought that was really arty. And he's like, people think it's an art house film.
Stylistic choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And he, oh God, I don't even know how to approach this whole thing. My mind is blown. But he clearly as well just delete this, remove this, Niall. I've lost my train of thought. I'm so distracted by every note I've got in front of me.
but yeah, we're introduced to Prince, and he's playing a character called Christopher Tracy, who we soon find out is a gigolo, and his whole thing is that he just sort of goes around shagging wealthy women for money, basically.
Is he actually a gigolo? Because watching the movie, I didn't get that impression, but IMDb says they're gigolos.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think he's supposed to be, it's him, and then we get Jerome Benton returning from Purple Rain, where he was once the sidekick to Morris Day in this crazy double act they had going, and then Prince presumably got jealous and was like, no, I want to be the funny one, so Jerome Benton's mine now. And he made him his bestie in this. And it's oh, okay.
You're my sidekick now.
And it's the two of them. I got the impression they were supposed to be traveling gigolos who just sort of
traveling gigolos. Okay.
Yeah, they gotta go. Yeah, they go where the wealthy are vacationing, and they'll shag around for a while, and then when the weather changes, they might drift off somewhere else, and
Is this a thing? This is a profession, a traveling gigolo.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're seeing a dirty, a gritty documentary-style expose on the whole lifestyle here, John. That's what this film is.
I mean, in that opening scene, that lady that gets seated right in front of the piano, and when he's doing his whatever he's doing, his facial tick, eyeball, mouth thing while he's playing, she, in order to begin the transaction, she leaves a large amount of money on the table in front of him and leaves the room. So from that, even though I don't think they say gigolo until like the last half of the movie, we were supposed to know from that's
completely passed me by. I thought he just somehow had, even though he keeps saying he's poor, he's clearly rich, right?
Well,
now, I thought he was rich just from playing the piano in clubs.
He's one of the fabulous Baker Boys.
Yeah.
It's one of the things, though. It's like, again, this happened in Purple Rain as well. It's like Prince doesn't know how to dress down. So you're told in theory he's supposed to be poor. But like much like in Purple Rain, like he lived out in his dad's old shack. And then he was still dressing like Prince, and he had the big purple motorbike. And they're like, well, why the hell doesn't he just use a bit of that money and move out of his parents' house?
How's he affording all this lace and velvet?
Yeah, and it's like, and this one is like, he's got really stylized, incredibly tailored clothes, and a different hairstyle in every scene. Like every scene, he's got something new on. He never wears the same thing twice. And
he's got a cowboy hat specifically for when he takes bubble baths.
Yeah.
That's an expense that I cannot afford.
Unless, like, they're supposed to be under the presumption that, because he wears some, like, crazy things that only Prince could get away with wearing. Like, he has, at one point, this huge, baggy leather coat, but he's wearing, like, a really tight crop top underneath. And he's got the hair. It's the outfit he has in the video for Kiss, actually. I think they must have filmed it on, like, the same day. But it's like, you could maybe get the impression it's like, oh, maybe he just stole these clothes or he just found them, and that's why he's wearing all this crazy stuff.
How do you find clothes like these?
I was thinking like it's his wardrobe in real life, and he just like wore it to the set. I'm wearing this today.
Oh, totally. I imagine that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't make any sense for why this, again, like even then, like the next scene, we're introduced to him arriving back at this luxury sort of hotel where he lives, and you're told that there's a very angry landlord, or like I'm assuming she's the landlord, but it's like a really young woman who's supposed to be the landlord. Whereas like you usually would see this in a movie where it'd be like a big fat guy with a cigar coming out going, "You owe me 2 months rent," and like that kind of thing. Or like the guy in Spider-Man who's always getting on to Peter Parker about like, "Oh, where's the rent?" and all that stuff.
Right.
But they've chosen to cast like a young French woman, and then like she found out, they owe her 2 months rent, and it's like, one, how did they get past a month's rent? Surely they should be kicked out straight away. And two, like how much is this rent? Because it's like this place is like a mansion, and I don't understand how you could sustain. Like you think they would have the standards of like if you're a second past the rent, and they just find out like these guys are kind of shifty gigolo types, they'll be like, get the hell out. We don't want that kind of business here.
I mean, sorry. First of all, this is France, so it's who knows what flies over there.
That's true.
Second of all, it's based on like what had the interaction like when we find that lady, she's canoodling around with Tricky. Right.
Oh yeah.
Behind the counter or something like that, and that's when she's like, "Oh, you guys don't have the rent," and then they both start doing this like, "Hey, we're intimidatingly sexy" kind of thing to her, and she's like, and they both get in the elevator. I'm like, "Oh, I know what's going on upstairs later," but I guess you can't kick out men that are that charming.
Well, that's the thing. I think Tricky at least kind of persuades her to let him stay, maybe by just sleeping with her. That seems to be the implication.
I think that's what we're supposed to get from that little interaction. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of, very hard to believe.
Yeah, and originally they had a large man cast as a building manager. If you boys wants to sleep with me, then you can stay in this buildings.
Now that I would maybe buy. Like that would make sense. But I was also creeped out when they got in the elevator with her, because right, I don't want to be. I'm going to have to word this carefully. It seemed like they were being very intimidating, and they were going to be quite inappropriately physical with her, shall we say?
Yeah.
A bit forceful.
Yeah,
and I felt very uncomfortable watching it.
Very, very much so, yes. I think what they call it, the Bela Lugosi stare he gives her as well, which it just made me immediately think of.
Loved it.
Well, it just reminded me of in Paddington. When he has the whole thing, when Paddington Bear doesn't get his way, he has a stern, hard stare he gives people, and he just kind of glares at them, and they get like really, whoa, what the hell's that? And then he's just like, that's what I do to people who are impolite, and all this kind of thing. I'm like, did the writers of Paddington get that from the Bela Lugosi stare established in Under the Cherry Moon?
Yes, they got it from Under the Cherry Moon, of course.
Should mention that the landlady though, Katie, is played by French actress, obviously, called Emmanuelle Salé. And she has one other credit, which is a film called The Perils of Gwendolyn in the Land of the Yik Yak. Which, it sounds like, if Please Don't Send Me Into Outer Space ever was going to review a movie, that something with that title seems to be a prime contender, really.
Right.
I'm adding it to the list right now.
Yeah, it sounds like an opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's got the plot summary here. It says, Gwendolyn arrives in China in a box and is helped out of her immediate predicament by a female contact and a devil-may-care adventurer. She's on a mission to find her father, who was last seen searching for a rare butterfly in the land of the Yik Yak. They confront the evil Cheops in an attempt to find Gwen's lost father and the butterfly, and face many other challenges to their mission. Which sounds like, why isn't this like the biggest film franchise ever? That sounds excellent. What the hell?
Disney are going to buy it out and remake it.
But coming next year, Obi-Wan in the land of the Yik Yak.
I was going to bring up something just before we got to this bit, and I completely forgot. Because it starts the movie, and it runs throughout, right? Am I the only person who, every scene of them together, felt there was a really odd sexual chemistry between Christopher and Tricky?
Oh, no. The entire time is that... Apparently, I actually had to Google it, because it's like, maybe Jerome Benton, because he is very camp. He's very stereotypically what you'd assume of like a gay man. He's like, oh, so well, maybe he is. Apparently, he's like married with kids and stuff, so, in a heterosexual relationship. But it does seem there's a very, very strong homosexual undercurrent between these two guys. Particularly as there's a scene of like obviously Christopher's taking a bath, and Tricky's just kind of hanging out, which would be fair enough. But then there's a scene where Christopher gets out, then he trips, and Tricky kind of catches him in a kind of romantic fondle, and it looks as if they're about to kiss, and it's like, are they gay gigolos who are like, and their business is just going out shagging wealthy women, and then they're together as a couple, or like, because that's I can accept that as a movie. That's fair enough. But
I gotta interrupt here. I don't know what you guys are talking about. These guys are the picture of masculinity, and
straightest men I
never got any sort of idea that there was any slight femininity to their actions, their clothes, their mannerisms, or anything like that. I mean, you saw the way Prince was kissing on that lady. It looked like he was looking for, I don't know, lumps or something on her mouth. But
he's really going for it, isn't he?
He's doing something.
I was afraid she couldn't breathe.
Still, at least you can say, I kissed Prince. I mean,
true, yeah, I think that.
I something
sort
to
of.
Prince.
Yeah, I mean, he called it a kiss, but...
Yeah, when they were in the hotel, I was getting kind of like... Earlier on in the movie, I was thinking Casablanca, like you guys were, and then when they're in the hotel room, I was like, is it supposed to be kind of like Some Like It Hot or something? Like,
yeah, I didn't think of that, yeah.
I was trying to understand where they were coming from, like, and it's very hard to relate to or understand.
Completely, because it doesn't set them up as, like, they need, like, the money for anything. There's no even real redemptive arc throughout the movie, really. I think Christopher kind of turns around near the end a bit. But
does
otherwise,
it
it is just these arseholes are trying to scam people.
Although the thing is, though, and I know, like, we already mentioned off mic, because, like, the thing is, like, Prince's character, or Christopher Tracy, never redeems himself in my eyes. He's just like, no, he's just a repulsive asshole, and he goes to his grave that way. But there's something so charming about Tricky that, like, even though he's doing the same con and he's in the same boat, I could not love him. Like, I was like, oh, if the whole movie was about Tricky, this thing would be, like, my favorite movie. But
he's much more likable.
Oh, yeah. He's just genuinely a lot funnier. I think it's just that he's actually because he was he was brought into the time, like, Jerome Bentham was, one of the members of the time. And apparently he was there predominantly on stage to act as a kind of, a comic sidekick to Morris Day on stage and stuff. So he does have, like, the patter, and he knows what. Like, he's not a great actor by any means, but he's at least
the worst actor
compared to Prince.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's kind of like that thing of, like, some people always say that, like, that's why you get so many really ugly bridesmaids dresses, is because then the bride looks even better when standing next to these ugly dresses. It's kind of like Prince had that in mind. But then it completely backfired because he got something way, way better than him.
And then he's like, oh, I know how to fix this. I'll get a first-time accurate actress to be my love interest. Then people will have to see how good I am.
Oh, smooth move. Gosh. I'm going to go against the vibe of the room, though. I hate Tricky. I hate him as much as Christopher. And it's the worst damn acting ever in history of film.
Good God. Some fighting words, John.
Every scene he was in, I just wanted to punch the guy.
I didn't really like him as a character either.
Thank God.
It feels weird to even call these characters because it just felt like, and the dialogue was so terrible. The things that Prince says to this woman or to anybody is like something like a little kid would write down as an idea of what you'd say to a girl. Like,
it's so cheesy, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It falls for it.
Yeah, but I'll still stick up for Tricky because, in his own words, he's his own man, just like Liberace. Which is, if you already thought, like, is he supposed to be gay? And then it comes out with that, you're like, oh, come on, he's got to be gay, right?
All movie, I was just waiting for them to kiss, but then aren't they cousins? Or are they calling each other cousin, as an endearing term?
I think at some point I got a note down thinking that they were brothers because he calls them brother at one point.
He definitely calls them brothers,
He does, yeah.
So, and then I think he refers to the landlady, Katie, as a cousin later on as well. So I think it is like a sort of genuine, like, that's a term of endearment, kind of. But anyway, we alluded there to the love interest, which is another one. Yeah, it's the love interest is Mary Sharon, played by, the first role for Kristen Scott Thomas from a movie that's, I think, gets less and less relevant to see every year, The English Patient, which is one of those, a big deal in '95. But I think, like, I've never watched it the whole way through. But now I've kind of got that feeling now of, like, some things that, like, you have to see, like, you have to see The Godfather, or you have to see, like, Titanic. At least you have to see it. But, like, The English Patient was, like, such a big deal, and, like, every year as the time goes past, it's just like, nah, you don't ever need to watch that. It's not. It's just not culturally relevant anymore.
And is she good in it, apparently? Because, like, she got really slated for this, but I actually thought she was moderately okay in comparison to most of the other people in the movie.
I mean, you're holding up a dirty piece of paper and being like, this is art, compared to a pile of manure. And
yeah,
so
in that context,
I think she did just fine, especially for a first time actress having to deal with all the things going on here. And I wouldn't have walked away from this saying that she was a bad actress if this had been the only thing I'd seen her in. That's for sure.
No.
I mean, they always say in acting, like, what's on the page, and then you, like, use that, and I'm like, what what was on the page for her. Like...
well, Prince has all his lines written out, and for her it just says woman stuff.
Yeah, just say some woman stuff. That'll be fine.
Tolerate Prince.
Lady talk.
Also, like, my weird thing was with her was like her whole thing is that she has to. She's in an arranged marriage, like she's going to be in an arranged marriage, like she's
much like Titanic, in fact. Like
yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
and it's kind of like she can't get her inheritance until she gets married, and they keep referring to her as like a kid, and it kind of gives the impression that she's supposed to be like maybe like she's under 18, like she is like a teenager. But like Kristen Scott Thomas, like she was 27 at the time, and like not to insult her in any way, but she looks older than that. She looks like she's in her 30s. So
yeah,
the whole time. Yeah, the whole time you're just like, why are they treating this character like she's like a baby, pretty much, or like she's like an unruly teenager, and it's like she's a fully grown woman. Like, what the hell's going on in this thing?
To get into gender politics, that's just a man undermining women thing, right? Like calling women baby and all that stuff like that. That's just a.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about her getting undermined in this movie, there are reams and reams of dialogue to support that statement.
Yeah, but I don't know what you're talking about. She's treated as an equal.
You think that if you're writing the movie, you would make her dad undermine her, her family, maybe the guy she's being forced to marry, but Prince should come in and treat her right. And that's not what happens at all.
No, this is not the plot kind of movie. I don't know what you're talking.
He sounds really wise about women, though, because he says she knows who she is, but she doesn't know what she wants.
Oh, no, that's a creepy thing to say. And let me guess, she wants me.
Oh, my God.
But, like, as it progressed, though, I thought, like, the script didn't really know who she was either, because... At the beginning, like the first scene you're introduced is it her birthday party or is it like a coming out party or some big event in her house?
21st birthday, I think.
Birthday,
yeah. And
that's why she shows her birthday suit to everybody.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. She comes out completely naked and she's like, "Oh, I hope you like my birthday suit." And all the kind of stuffed shirts that are like, "Oh, there's monocles popping out everywhere and going."
Woo, mustaches curling.
Yeah, most unorthodox. And then she goes up and she's playing drums with the band, and she's still naked, and it's like, oh, this girl's like a crazy free spirit and stuff. And then later on, it's like, no, she is like a very uptight sort of like, she wants to rebel, but she can't and stuff.
Yeah, and then she never really does anything rebellious again, other than seeing Christopher.
What about that part where she races a car? Come on, that's rebellious.
Well, okay, kind of, I guess.
But there's a bit of dialogue where near the end where Christopher says to her, "You're one of those closet maniacs. You just need somebody to bring it out in you." That's like she arrived to her party completely naked and she played drums naked. It's like there's no closet in that maniac. It's like you establish her as being this crazy free spirit, and now you've tried to put her back in the box somehow.
He wasn't at the party yet. Then you didn't see that part.
I think it's an ego thing. He wants to be the one to bring it out of her. So he wants to put her back in the box, so to speak, and then bring her out of the box again to be like, look at what I've done for you. You owe me. He's an egomaniac.
Oh my gosh. And I really do. I love Prince, but this movie. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he everything he does with her is something that would make women not want to be around you.
Run far.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm speaking from my own perspective, but it's repulsive, his attitude and the way he talks to her and this whole, like, playing kind of hard to get thing. Like, like, if you're a jerk and you're aloof, like... I don't know. Maybe that's some kind of reverse psychology that works on some women.
It's called negging.
It's called gaming.
Oh, yeah.
It's the game.
He knew the mystery method before mystery was there.
It's one of those weird ones, though. Of, is he playing hard to get, or is he doing like a weird opposite thing where he's constantly getting in her business and then treating her like crap? Like he breaks into her room at one point and she wants rid of him, and he's just treating her like dirt. And then this is his plan. It's like, no, this is how you win them over. It's like you're just constantly around, and then you treat them like crap, and then eventually they fall head over heels in love with you.
Of course. Foolproof.
He's supposed to be an expert on women, right? I think we established that in the very beginning with the piano playing and the lady he... although he's apparently slept with this lady before. I'm not sure what the story is there. But so I guess this is like he's figured her out. But also part of the plot is that he's suddenly surprised by her a couple of times. So has he not figured her out? Yeah.
That's an excellent point. Yeah. I don't understand any of that. In fact, to explain it, I now demand that we get, with the glory of CGI, Christopher Origins.
Oh my god!
I need to know the backstory with all that.
It would be cool as an animated movie.
But yeah, there's a scene then, like, Prince is constantly glaring at her from across the party, and then eventually she goes up and she's talking to her boyfriend or the guy, their fiance, on the phone.
He does,
and he's singing this really robotic version of Happy Birthday to her, and it's really weird. And then Prince is in the room with her. He's broken into her room. And then some of the dialogue, this is like, I've tried to write down as many of these terrible lines of dialogue because they're all just like, what?
I cannot wait.
Because at one point she says, my father's guards will throw you out. And then he says, very intimidatingly, why? Because you're not bad enough to do it yourself? And then he starts like crawling across the sofa like a tiger to her, which is like...
Okay, this part, I was not looking at the screen when this happened, and I heard him say that line, and then I heard, ow! And I was like... Sarah, was that a fart joke? I wasn't paying attention. Did Prince just pretend to fart? It's like, no, he was supposed to be growling. I was like, oh.
Maybe women like a fake fart joke. Who knows?
I mean, I don't know. He's supposed to be being rude, so I guess I wouldn't have put it past him. But...
fart jokes might have been okay in this movie. Maybe there was some cut out.
Yeah, the dad was always farting.
One of the better... one of the worst exchanges of dialogue I think I've ever heard, where not so much worse, it's just more kind of baffling, where he's trying to get it on with her, and then she says, I happen to go out with people my own age and they don't wear wedding rings, and then he says in response, well then they must be wearing diapers. And it's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? As soon as you're out of diapers, then you're married? What the hell's going on? Like, I don't...
I mean, that could have gone either way. He was either saying that she was a little kid and therefore had to date little kids, or she could only date super old people because old people sometimes have to wear diaper type things. But, you know. But
then why is that an appropriate comeback to a jab about wedding rings? And then why is Prince wearing a wedding? Has Prince got wedding rings on? Like,
it was on the wrong hand, I think. I was like, is that his left hand or his right hand? I thought it was his right hand, but it looked like a wedding ring.
He's married to his car.
Or has he stolen it from someone he slept with? And when they were asleep, he took the ring and left out of the window.
Maybe.
And he was like, I'm not going to pawn this. I'm going to wear it because I'm Prince.
Yeah. Well, actually, that brings up a good thing as well that I was thinking, like, I mean, I'm someone who, I like outrageous clothes. It's fine. But Prince is at this party looking phenomenal, but nobody once bats an eye at how bloody weird he looks. Like, it's a strange look, isn't it? It's not a normal party look.
I think like we could have done an entirely separate episode just talking about the various outfits of Prince.
The outfits, yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, we were talking about earlier how this movie's in black and white, and like it was a choice that somebody made, maybe Prince, who knows. And I saw that this movie was actually shot in color and then later developed into black and white. And I can't think of any logical reason to do. I know it's supposed to give it an old-timey feeling. I guess that's logical. But like he's talking about like, oh man, no one's ever looked as good as in gold as I have. And there's, he's wearing all of these Prince things, and I just kept thinking like, there's so many times where if I didn't want to pay attention to the dialogue or what's going on, at least I could enjoy the colors that I'm sure were going on in the background.
Ooh. Well, I think you've discovered the truth about it then. I think he made it black and white because he's like, I don't want people distracted with how great I look. I want them to pay attention to the story.
I want them to pay attention to me.
I just imagine though as well, like how frustrating that must have been for like the DP and like the people who did the lighting and stuff, because they're like, oh, we made sure everything looked great, and then afterwards when told like, oh, it's been converted to black and white, and like,
wait, what? Yeah.
It's like, but it won't look as good. I was like, yeah, well, but Prince thinks it'll make it look like it's a Godard film or something.
Oh my god.
I will say one thing, though. I think if you want to praise anything in the movie, I think it does look quite good. Like it doesn't look like they just converted it into black and white somehow. It looks like it was made to look and feel and have that whole atmosphere of an old-timey movie like a Casablanca. You know, it works in that aspect.
Sometimes it does.
Yeah, not consistently. That's part of the issue, I think.
I wouldn't have liked the film better, but I think it would have been more challenging for Prince because, you know, much like with Purple Rain, there is an entire the entire soundtrack was written for the film, and that's, you know, Purple Rain is obviously a much better album because that's probably his best album, not really, and it all worked out quite well. But then, like, if he had set himself the challenge of going like, I'm gonna write a soundtrack album for this movie that's set in like the 30s, and it's going to be all in that sort of 1930s feel. So then whenever a Prince song starts, it's not this really jarring, oh, this sounds incredibly hip and modern and stuff. And it's like, oh, that's right, it's not set in the 30s, it's set in 1986.
Oh my gosh. But it was so jarring when the music started. It was like, here comes another, like... And it's not that I don't like Prince's music, it just... Everything was so all over the place that you couldn't find like a continuity to like follow. And yeah, even in the first 5 minutes, I was trying to figure out what we were doing here in this movie.
And you still are.
And I think I said something to Joel like, once upon a time there was this guy and he liked to sleep with ladies. Like, I don't know what... There needed to be more than that.
Well, that's the thing we forgot to mention. At the beginning, they actually do have, like, a once upon a time. Like, it has a fairy tale narration. And you're like, oh, is there going to be a narrator throughout? No. That was... And then it's like, well, why is it presented like a fairy tale? It doesn't play like a fairy tale. And it's like, it's just a thing. Just a thing they threw in. Just
because. Why is it set in Paris? Like, what? Is there any need for it to be set in Paris? It doesn't look like it's set in Paris.
I think this is probably, it might have been much like, you know, Adam Sandler's kind of confessed in more recent years that he just takes scripts that are set in like Hawaii and stuff because he's like, oh, I get to go to Hawaii, it's great. And then he's just like, I just stick around and I just make a really half-assed movie and then I make a couple of $1 million out of it. Where this could have been Prince been like, it's set in France because I want to go and spend a bunch of time in France.
But there's nothing very French in it. Like, they don't go around France. There's no, like, shots of France that you would sort of know. It could be anywhere. This could be somewhere in America. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, totally. Oh, this could have been just, like, in Beverly Hills or something. There's there's literally no reason for it, except just to have, like, a bunch of French actresses in it. That's about the only kind of thing you go, like, oh, that's right. Yeah, it's not set in America because there's all these glamorous French women in it. And, yeah.
So Prince just wanted to sleep with some French women is basically what you're saying.
I thought maybe they were on like European tour or something and Prince was just like, no, I'm gonna do the movie right here. I don't want to leave. Like, let's just do it here.
Did it in a weekend.
Yeah, that would almost make me feel better for them if I knew that they only had a limited amount of time in France to get it completed.
Oh, I hope that is the explanation for this film. Where the hell were we in the movie here? Hang on. The insults and stuff we were talking about.
Yeah, we just kind of get to it, like, a bunch of scenes then. There's pretty much, like, the conquest of Mary, pretty much, of Christopher winning her over, I guess what you would call it. But it's just a bunch of arguments. It's just her... Like, he gets chucked out of the party, and he says... maybe if you took your chastity belt off, you could breathe a little more better, is what he said.
That really annoyed me. The English. No.
Oh my god.
And then she spends like a bit of time doing like a George Costanza, just coming up with things in her head that she should have said back to him.
I do that in real life, so I sympathize with her there. I'm on her side.
It's like I would have probably cheered if she came back and just said like, well, the jerk store called, Prince. They're running out of you. And sorry,
I like the one she comes up with saying about the jockstrap line. You know, because as an English person, right, I don't actually know what they're for. They're always in American movies and things and sports related things. What are they for? Does it cut off your breathing? Like, I don't understand.
No, they're for holding your genitals in place while you're running around.
Really? What?
Yes. Like, say, I mean, if you're doing something like soccer or something like that, where you do have to do, a steady amount of running, I guess. Okay, let's talk about biology here. A man's body, when it gets too warm, their testicles drop away from their body. So the cup or the jockstrap is meant to hold it from, going to a place where you might smash into it, I guess.
Okay. Because I don't think we use them here. Like,
that's good. Nobody cares about your genitals.
They
there.
play this game called football there sometimes, I think. And
Football. Sorry, soccer, football. You know what I meant.
Yeah. So people do sometimes wear like a cup, but more so they don't get hit.
Right. Yeah.
I've had this exact same conversation with Joel. I had to have him explain to me what a jockstrap was.
Yeah, because
too.
I walk around in a jockstrap all the time.
You're like, why are you wearing that thing again?
What? No, I didn't know what a jockstrap was for either, and he had to tell me. So this is my second time hearing this story.
Based on my middle school experience, it's only there for humiliation purposes.
I always assumed there's something to do with like people's asses getting really sweaty and them not wanting to have the fabric there.
Oh yeah, you gotta release that sweat. There's no back.
But
it's like an extra layer.
You could go just directly into the short. That's much better.
Just pours down the leg.
But at some point here in the film, I think they established this the con that is to thrust this plot forward. Is that I think their entire intention of Christopher and Tricky is that I think originally is it Tricky who's supposed to get with, he's going to hook up with Mary and then they're going to get her money. That's the play, I guess.
I think so.
Maybe it was supposed to be like a good cop, bad cop thing. Like maybe Prince was supposed to go in and be rude, and then Tricky was supposed to go in and be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that makes more sense than anything else in the movie, to be fair. But
yeah, that would make more sense than what is. Yeah.
See, guys, this movie's secretly good.
No, no.
We do get to one of my favorite parts. Like, it's so bad it's good. Most of this movie is just so bad it's bad. But there is a part where she comes round and basically harasses Christopher at his place of work. When he's there playing his piano, and she delivers her late comeback. And we get, like, there's a whole sort of... there's a good 15 minutes of insane dialogue. Because there's Tricky's classic, marry a stupid girl, you get stupid kids. Which is... and he goes on a whole thing, follow a stupid kid home and see if a stupid person doesn't answer the door. Okay. So he distills that down quite neatly. But we follow that up a little bit later with Prince insulting her again with calling her a cabbage head, which is very smooth.
Oh, that's at the end, though, of a great back and forth between them, because she calls him it's like punk, brat, gigolo, cabbage head. And it's like, it's really like you're kind of dealing in relatively adult insults. And then Prince reverted back to being 5 years old, and he's like, the best I can come up with is cabbage head.
Stinky doo-doo face.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah. You smell. You got cooties.
That's the thing, he's just going to tug her hair and then run away. That's.
That means you like them.
Yeah. And then she says to him, like, what? Because he looks troubled. She says, "What's the matter? Late for work?" And he just goes, "Yeah." Like, I don't understand what that is. It meant to be like she's mocking him because he has a job, and she's so rich she doesn't need a job? Is that
she's definitely mocking like his class? I mean, she does bring that all the time. She keeps calling him peasant or what else does she call him? There's a whole bunch of like, you're under me, class wise kind of thing like that. So that part I was like, no, that's the correct response. Like, I'm not ashamed I have to work.
Well, that's the thing. Like, well, one thing is that like you have to get past the ridiculousness of coming up to someone who's dressed and looks like Prince and calling him a peasant when he looks like the fanciest man alive. Like, it looks like he has
he looks like a French prince.
Yeah, he looks like he has like silk toilet paper. It's like that, he looks that fancy. And then
maybe he just smells really bad.
Yeah, no, I think Prince smells of patchouli oil and things.
Oh, man.
I guarantee Prince smelled. Like, has anyone ever talked about that in an interview? Because I guarantee he smelled great. Like, he would have been a guy with like, the fanciest baths and just like, like going to the Prince's bathroom. I bet you like you never once had the slightest odor of methane in that bathroom. He had it so.
You just reminded me of a scene earlier when I said Prince is in the bath with his cowboy hat on, and Tricky's in there in the bathtub, or not in the bathtub. He's in the bathroom with him. There's a part where Tricky reaches into the tub and pulls out some bubbles and sniffs them, and then he does it again. And I was like, what?
Why? What? Yeah.
Again, they're too close, these two guys. It's. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, obviously. It's fine. But, like, I just kept expecting them to hook up. Like, I thought that was the story.
I don't know why.
A couple of smooches.
Yeah.
For some reason, too, like, I felt bad there because I just did my mind went to the worst place of, like, and I actually did, like, an involuntary there because I thought, like, maybe Prince has farted in the bath and Tricky's trying to
God.
The fart jokes.
I also love the next scene after the bit we were talking about, with the cabbage head and all that. The next bit where he goes up to her house and he's sneaking up to the front door of her house with a bottle of wine and it's playing like comedy style music as he's sneaking up there. And then it's his little like screaming thing he does when he can't get in. Like, what does he say? Does he say, put a pillow up her ass?
So you know who that, the situation there was that Mary told him that Mrs. whatever her name is, his usual customer, wanted to meet him at 7 p.m. So he showed up at Mrs. whatever her name is house at 7 p.m. with that bottle of wine and realized that Mary's father was there. So Mary had set it up so that Christopher would catch her father sleeping with his favorite customer.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, spiraling a whole jealousy thing.
That makes a lot more sense now you've explained it, but the movie doesn't make that very clear.
No it doesn't.
It's very, very confusing. I was thinking, isn't that the woman from earlier? Like, what's going on?
I think at one point I just looked away from the screen for like 2 seconds. I came back and it was just kind of making the assumption as like, oh, he's just outside her house drunk now because he's an asshole. That was all I needed. It was like, yeah, I get this.
that makes sense.
Yeah, like finding out now, like, oh no, there's more going on. I was like, really? Did there need to be more going on? But going back though to before I forget though, because you mentioned the whole thing about her saying like, oh, are you late for your job? There's a bit at the beginning of the movie too that we went past where, as Christopher's returning home, a bunch of kids who seem to be like massive fans of him run up and they're all like tearing. It's like they're looking for an autograph or something. And then he's just like, oh, go get a job. I got a job. Why don't you get a job? And these kids are like 10 years old. And I didn't understand, like, is he famous to them? Do they just love him because he's just like such a charming guy? What is happening?
Do kids know the local gigolos? Like, what's going on?
Those are traditional French street urchins. Okay, they were looking for coinage because he hands a couple of them coins.
I feel like there's more than one part where they're trying to say that they're like street and that they're like rough, but like the thing that's ridiculous and hard to believe about it is that, like you're saying, Prince is always dressed so over the top, and they live in this fancy hotel, and they have all this money that ladies keep giving to Prince, and I feel like there's a part too where they're talking about how she isn't street enough, and
in fact that's the line, isn't it? She ain't got no street.
Yeah, read this. Read it. Read it.
It's so ridiculous. I mean, if this were set in like the hood, maybe, but like
it's set out in this
like Save the Last Dance,
absolute paradise. None of it makes any sense.
Does Prince think that this is the street? Like, does he not understand? He's been famous for a long time at this point.
Yo, I grew up on the streets of Paris.
Well, I feel like the kids coming up to him would either be like a street thing or like you're a famous thing. I don't know.
I thought it was going to be one of those things they do in movies sometimes that they parody actually in Black Dynamite. Like, I thought maybe Prince was going to be, like, you know, he might do a few suspect things to get cash, but he ends up donating it to the local orphanage. You know, he goes around at Christmas, he's Santa Claus for the orphans. Because he used to be in that orphanage.
For some reason, I assumed you were going to say, like, oh, Prince is secretly, like, the dad of all these kids. Like,
Who knows?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that would also work.
I didn't know it was you under that Santa beard, Prince.
I thought that was going to come back, though. You know, the kids and I thought the kids would help him out of a sticky situation later on.
Oh,
yeah.
They would rescue him.
Thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I just really want to see Prince dressed up as Santa now, though, because it's just like, what kind of a Santa outfit would he have? It wouldn't be just like your traditional fat suit. It would be a whole big production, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's just got a fake gray goatee. He doesn't even have the beard.
It's like a really long, bejeweled red robe and like stiletto heels and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, speaking of his looks as well, there's a party about halfway through again. And, you know, she's mocked Christopher for the way that he kind of he looks and stuff, because a couple of times she does mention things about his unusual look actually, but she turns up to this party looking like a kind of 20s/30s movie star.
Yep.
And then she's there saying like, people look strange. Like, I didn't know why. Yeah, like, I mean, it's a good look, but don't mock people if you're going to be dressing that way.
Right.
Yeah, she's 100% going for that, like, silent movie. Like, I feel like that's a specific image, and I can't recall the actress.
Like kind of like a Greta Garbo kind of thing, though.
Yeah.
But
because I don't know what you call that kind of that jewelry. Like, it's like a hat, but that they always seem to wear that then.
I'm trying to think, like, you're saying there's a party midway through, and I just realized like every other scene in this movie is a party. Yeah, so it's like, well, which
I had
one?
to specify which party.
I was gonna say there's that one scene where they have a party.
Oh yeah.
But there's a bit though where they go to dinner, and that gets very aggressive as well. There's just a lot of kind of barking back and forth at each other, and Tricky's just there in the middle of the whole thing. And then I know you're saying it was your favorite scene, John, because they bring up this whole business of what's a Prince writes down on a piece of paper.
Oh, this is the worst.
Yeah,
this is the worst scene in cinema history. I'm putting it out there in the history of cinema.
Yeah, but he writes down on a piece of paper, "wrecka, stow," and he makes her say it over and over again until it becomes apparent that it's supposed to be record store. And then they're just mocking her accent. But it's like, it goes on. And they're really like howling with laughter about this. And it's like, this
is... it's the funniest thing they ever thought of.
Yeah. It's not remotely amusing to anyone.
And it's just like, this is bullying. This is flat out, you've just brought this woman here to bully her. And pick on her for her accent.
Make fun of her, laugh at her. Yeah.
He's breaking it down.
And it's a bit, but, you know, it's the thing with like good friends can kind of take the piss out of each other after, you know, years of like sort of like, oh, we know it doesn't mean anything. It's just fun. But this is like, he's been nothing but horrible to her the entire time, and then to do this is just like, why is she sticking around with him? He's nothing but like an absolute just monster to her. It's horrible to watch.
If I were her, that would have been it. Like I mean, if I had ever put up with a guy for this long, that would have been the last straw. I mean, I don't think I would ever be in this situation because it's not something human beings actually do.
Nothing in this movie feels like something a human being would do.
I know, it's like from another planet.
Planet Prince. He's living on Planet Prince at this time, clearly.
This is his seduction process with her, and there's this other seduction thing that he does. He talks to ladies on the phone, and he tries to seduce them over the phone. And it's even worse. Like,
cringy.
I remember a long time ago, people used to call each other on the phone and talk to, people that they liked or whatever. But it's so embarrassing to watch this. It's just, oh my God.
Yeah, I sort of know my poems over text message now.
Oh, a modern man.
One scene then, though, because one of the most marked differences between this and Purple Rain is that in that one, or in Purple Rain, sorry, he was a musician. He was ostensibly just playing Prince. And, every couple of scenes, there would be like a music, like a song on stage. He'd get up and perform with the Revolution. And like it was a lot of the time, it was like highlight of the movie because it's like, the scenes are terrible. It's like, well, these songs are great. And it made sense, but then they've taken out any... Beyond him playing the piano, there's no allusion to him being a full-blown, like, rock star. And then there's a scene then when they perform Girls and Boys, where I think he just, like, trips on, like, a boombox. And then he stands up on top of the piano. And I don't know if he's supposed to be miming the song, or if he's singing it and everyone can hear him, but the place goes wild. And he's doing all the Prince dance moves, and Tricky's dancing like a grandma in the corner, waving his arms and stuff. And it's
Mary's getting down. She can't even help herself either.
Yeah, and to be fair, like the song is great. Like it's like, I like this. I'd listen to this song casually all the time. It's the highlight of the movie so far. But it's it's just a real like, what's happened here? Like this is kind of like, I wasn't gonna do any proper songs, but I can't help it. I've got to have to. Strip my stuff and just make sure everybody knows that it's like, I know you all be so convinced that I'm actually Christopher Tracy, but I want people to remember it's me, Prince. So I'm going to have to go up and do some Prince dance moves and stuff.
It literally comes out of the blue. It's insane. But my favorite bit about it's a great song, as you say, and Prince dancing away, he's cool. But I love all the awful old white people dancing in the crowd.
But
nobody can groove.
Maybe he's trying to... Maybe he knows his character is a jerk, and he thinks she'll have to love him if he uses his musical genius on her in this way.
Works every time.
Everybody just surrenders to the music.
that was the ploy in Purple Rain. It's just like, he's such a dick. And then you go up on stage and you're like, oh no, he's really talented though. So I can get why people could stand to be around him, because it's like he's really good at what he does though. It's like I want to see him perform at least. But this is just like, this is the first inkling we've ever got that beyond him sitting playing the piano, that he actually has any musical inclinations and that he is like a full blown. I guess he's like a pop star to these people. And again too, that's because out of nowhere. I don't think it's a pre-planned. I'm on a date. Like, I'm going to go up and perform. He just does it out of nowhere. And the whole place is like, hey, great. You think the management would be like, what the hell's going on? You can't do this. Jesus Christ. You can't perform unannounced, get up on top of the piano and start going crazy.
Yeah. And her dad comes in instead and says, you can't do this.
Her dad, Stephen Burkoff. I'm so torn with him, right? I love him in a lot of roles, but at the same time, he always just plays Stephen Burkoff. He does that voice. He delivers the lines the same. Everything I've seen him in, at least, he's just doing what he's doing in this. He doesn't put any effort in, kind of thing. And it depends if it works for his character or not.
I guess he probably should, like, in case people who don't know who he is, it's like he's the bad guy in Beverly Hills Cop. He's the bad guy in Rambo First Blood Part 2. He's General Orlov in Octopussy, who I believe was the bad guy. He's just like, he's a bad guy in everything you've ever seen him in.
No, Niall, get it right. He's a party poop, as Prince says. Not a party pooper.
God.
He's a party poop.
The worst insult possible.
Oh man, these two.
But I was just thinking though, because we were saying that was a bit weird that like Becky Johnson wrote this and then went on to write like really acclaimed movies. But the lines like Cabbage Head and Party Poop, maybe she wrote it when she was like 6, and that's why like she's kept the script around. And then when she was in her 20s, she's like, oh, here's a script I wrote back when I was.
God, I hope so. It's the only explanation.
I feel like there was a lot of, like you said, Prince rewriting, a lot of him going, read. Nah, I wouldn't say this. Read. Nah, I wouldn't say this.
He probably just ad-libbed half of his own damn lines on the spot. Nobody wanted to challenge him.
Could be.
I was kind of in disbelief about the way he acts throughout this movie, and it was kind of reminding me of how Dave Chappelle made fun of him on the Dave Chappelle show.
Yes.
And I was like, no, that could have been accurate. This is like what he was like.
I 100% believe that. I have no doubt.
Oh, the fact that he's like in 2 films now, he's portrayed, this character who's like supposed to be insanely good with women and is supposed to be incredibly talented and handsome and beloved by people. Yet is an absolute jerk and goes through a thing where everyone hates him for a little bit because he's done some wrong things, but then he doesn't have to apologize because at the end everyone loves him again anyway. I think that's just like what Prince thinks life is like. Like at this point of his career, he had been famous and beloved by so many people for like 10 plus years, and at such a young age. Like I think he was like teenager by the time he was starting to get famous. He might be, maybe he just never matured. He never realized like, no, you can't just treat people whatever way you want, and then people will just come fawning for you anyway because you're so charming and talented. It's like he just thinks that no, this is the way love works. It's like I go up and I just smack, I verbally smack them about a bit, and then they act like they're offended, but then eventually they're going to come to me because it's Prince. I'm Prince, and everything's great. I think that might be his. I think that's his actual mentality at this point in his life, at least. Anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly his attitude. He probably doesn't understand that he's being an arsehole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anywho, we've still got like a chunk of the film to go here, so we better.
Well, we haven't got to do every scene. Half of them are parties, as you said.
Yeah. Well, it was one bit. I remember Kristen Scott Thomas arrives in an outfit which is virtually identical to the Joker's outfit in Batman when he shows up at the museum. She's got like the little hat and she's wearing like a kind of suit with the big tie and stuff. I was like, oh my god, that's the same outfit. Although maybe it's in black and white. If that was like a purple suit and stuff she was wearing and an orange shirt, I've been like, oh my god, that's where they got it from.
Christopher, music.
I was shocked that there's a scene in this with a bat.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Which feels like a nod to Batman, but it's before.
Yeah, it's like a full 3 years before. And it would have been filmed actually 4 years before it came out. So there's no inclination at this point that Prince was going to have anything to do with Batman.
But doesn't that whole bit with the bat only serve the purpose of being a callback to the fact he was in Batman? You know what I mean? Like, that's the only reason you would have that in there. There's no other.
It's supposed to be funny. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Probably it strikes me more as like maybe it was like Prince at one point was in a restaurant where a bat showed up and everyone freaked out, and he's like, "That was really funny. Put that in the movie." And then they have to like, "This doesn't serve any purpose. It doesn't add to anything." It's no, it was really funny. People are gonna love this. And then 30 years later, we're sitting going. Nah, it wasn't funny, and there was just no goddamn need to put it in the film.
But we're still talking about it.
Yeah. So like, he's up there in heaven now, looking down, going, "There you go. I knew that scene would stick with people." But yeah, I think you mentioned earlier, Joel, there is a point where there's an impromptu drag race, where the Prince is just sitting in his car, and then she pulls up alongside him, and then they're just gonna go want a race. And then just have a drag race, just out of nowhere. And it's like, all right. I guess you could say that, like, particularly by, spoilers for the end of the movie, the fact, that Christopher gets shot and stuff, and it's kind of like a real... that and this is like, is he going for like a rebel without a cause kind of thing? Because there's a big drag race in that, and then in that movie that ends in the real tragic death of like Sal Minio's character, and there's a whole thing where like his girlfriend is just like, oh not his girlfriend, but like James Dean's girlfriend is like, this poor guy and all this sort of thing, and everyone's really devastated because it's wrongful death by shooting, and that's kind of the end of this as well. I don't know if that is that the entire reason. He's like, oh yeah, it's like rebel without a cause, so we got to throw in a drag race because that happens in that movie. So, and then the rest of the production were like, I thought we were making Casablanca. What happened to that? It's like, that was like 5 scenes ago. We have not got time for that. We've moved on.
Oh my gosh.
We've evolved.
You watched another movie that day. Oh no, wait, I want to do this one instead.
It does feel kind of like Titanic because he is kind of trying to show her like a crazy new world that she hasn't seen before, and then he's like, let's run away or whatever, and then he ends up dying in the end, and it's like, I can't take that serious when I know that a few scenes ago you made her say wrecka, stow on a napkin. Like, I'm not gonna be heartbroken that you R.I.P. Prince. But I was not heartbroken at the end of this movie.
Oh. Wait, so, and are you saying that Wrecka Stow is in Titanic as well?
Oh.
Yep.
No, that's like the loogie or something.
Yeah, that's the spit scene.
yeah. I actually like that spitting scene in Titanic. People hate it. I think that's pretty cool.
The spitting scene makes sense because that's them bonding, at least. Like, it's a disgusting concept, but it's like,
yeah, he's not insulting her.
Yeah,
right?
That's not like Jack came in and spat in Rose's eye, and that was supposed to be.
Right, he wasn't laughing at her.
Yeah. But yeah, again, talking about like the terrible relationships, and now what he does is like, he screws over Tricky as well, who's under the impression that he's getting with Mary. That like the plan is that they're going to get together, but then Prince nips out for 2 hours. I think he says 2 hours. And then it keeps cutting to Tricky in the restaurant waiting for him. He's very blatantly a man who's been stood up for a date. Once again, seemingly confirming that like these guys are a couple. Like, they have to be.
He stood me up. Yeah.
He got abandoned by both of them.
Yeah. Or as he refers to it, he got dogged by him. Which is, I don't know, is dogging a thing in America? Do you guys know what dogging is? Because it's a big thing in the UK.
A very different thing.
What is it?
What is your definition of dogging? And then we'll tell you our definition of dogging.
We might have to edit it out of the show for the rating.
Come on,
Niall, take it away.
Use your PG definition.
Well, things we'll put up. I've never done this, but I understand that dogging is eventually you drive out into the middle of the country, and just sort of wait there, and eventually people just come along and like have sex with you, basically. But it's usually men doing it to other men. But I don't know if it's anything out of just like, we just need to shag something.
I see.
Like, it's just,
so it's like on the down low is what they
yeah. But then often people, in the definitions I have understood as well, often people like watch from the bushes.
It's a voyeuristic down low.
Mm-hmm. So if you're like driving through like the country hills late at night and you see a car out in the field, you're like, someone's dogging out there. That's most likely what they're waiting for.
I see. So okay. So Sarah, if I said somebody was dogging me, what would you think I meant?
Well, in my growing up in Southern California experience, it would mean that either they were staring somebody down, which is like a bad way. Like, you're trying to intimidate another person by staring them down.
Yep.
Or you could be insulting them in some way.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I think of dogging. Like, if somebody's just like being kind of a jerk for the purpose of trying to get a reaction from you, that's what I think. Somebody's dogging you, and it DAWG, of course.
Yeah, I got a similar vibe from this. I thought he was kind of like meaning it like, he's screwed him over, he's messed him around, he's done him wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah. I will never use dogging in the UK.
And then he drove out to the forest.
I'm afraid maybe I did say it at some point.
You said it to your friend.
The thing is, like, it's even better than when you consider, as Tricky's storming out of the restaurant, some old guy says to him, "Marvelous night, isn't it?" And then Tricky says, "Yeah, if you like getting dogged." It's like,
if you know what I mean, you elbowed him.
Oh, that's perfect. I forgot all about that line.
But the thing is, even then, if you're talking about dogging as like an act of like insulting people, that's all Prince is like the date he's on with Mary. It's like night and day because the conversations are like. That's the scene where he has the, "Oh, you're one of those closet maniacs. You just need me to bring it out in you." And then within the blink of an eye, they start arguing out of nowhere. And it's like, he's coming out with things like, "You ain't funky at all. You're just a little old prude." And then he's like mocking the sounds she makes when they're having sex. And he starts going on about like, "Oh, did I hurt Mary's little feelings?" He's like, he's full on like the school bully again. Yeah, and she's properly crying. Yeah. And it's like, what is this relationship? Like, what is happening?
There's no coming back from that, is there? Come on.
No,
if someone did that to you, you'd be like, right, that's it. It is over.
Yeah. But then what's even more messed up is after that, they have this whole kind of, they part ways. And then he goes and rings her dad. And he starts bragging about the fact that he slept with her. And he starts coming up with things like, "She's going to be mine." And then all this stuff like, "Oh, you're so angry because you want to get her hooked up with someone else." And he says, like, and I quote, "She'll always belong to me." And it's like, what is this? Who is this psycho? This is just really unhealthy. I'm kind of like at the end when Steven Berkoff, ostensibly has him killed. It's kind of like, I would probably try to get him killed too, because he seems like he's a nut job.
Well, I love the way, Steven Berkoff, he basically orders his execution. And nobody really seems bothered by, like, they're bothered that he's dead, but not that Steven Berkoff has killed him.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's, like, attacking him or shouting at. They accept that he stands there, like, basically.
I guess you could be like, maybe it's a commentary in the fact that Berkoff's supposed to be like a rich guy. And it's like, oh, the rich can get away with anything. But then, Prince was a poor guy, and he was, treating women terribly, apparently, for years. And I guess you could say he didn't get away with it. He got shot. But
he got dogged.
But it's kind of like, I don't know if that was supposed to be the message we're taking away from the movie.
It's a real Pride and Prejudice. There's a class divide, and they both have different ideas of who the other person is.
Yeah.
He's the Elizabeth Bennet, and she's the Mr. Darcy. No, I'm just kidding.
Slight role reversal there.
I'm just kidding. No, it's ridiculous. I don't understand at all, but I do think that they deliberately made them a more argumentative couple because maybe they've heard that, that sometimes people, when they argue a lot, they just are crazy about each other.
Yeah, it's passion.
Yeah, it's passion. And oh boy.
There's a difference between passion and then mocking someone's the sounds they make during lovemaking. That's not passionate.
If she ended up with this guy for the rest of her life, it would be like she was being clowned on for like the rest of her whole life. Like,
wait, is clowned on a weird thing in the UK?
Well, clowning on is.
Is that involve two people in inappropriate things?
Well, clowning someone is when you go under a bridge and then go down there with a couple of sticks.
Everything here is sexual.
You take a fruit basket and.
But then we got like another fight, and I actually have to say, this is my favorite scene of the whole movie. Then pops up where. Tricky confronts Christopher about like him obviously blowing him off because him and Mary are in a relationship, and Tricky was under the impression that he was supposed to get with her and all this, and they have a whole big back and forth, and it actually has my favorite line of dialogue, and I almost mean it like it's awful, but I do genuinely love it as like, oh, I wish I could come out with that to somebody, because Tricky says. Oh, that's nerve. And then he mocks him going like, oh, I'll meet you at the club in 2 hours, because he was supposed to meet him in the club in 2 hours. And then Prince says, I got waylaid. And then Tricky says, no, you got let-aid. And it's like, that's a good comeback. That
is pretty good. I'll give him that one.
Just Tricky won the argument. That's it. Walk away, Christopher. You're not going to recover from that one.
You burn it.
But then it gets into more dialogue, which again, it's as if like, oh, they got that one good line, and then they completely mess it up by Tricky following with, you dogged me, you lied to me, you broke the rules of our partnership, you're a jive, and you got laid. And it's like, well, that's a lot to take in.
And most of those are bad, and then he puts in at the end, and you got laid.
Yeah, you got laid. It's just like, well, is it like, oh, at least you got laid. All these things, at least you got some.
It's my list of grievances.
Actually, no, that is a bad thing to him because he's in love with him.
Yeah. Oh, that's true enough.
Yeah, Tricky says that he does actually care for her.
I think that.
Wait, you're talking about Christopher's in love with her. Yeah, that's breaking the rules.
It works both ways.
I thought you meant that Tricky was in love with Christopher.
Exactly. He broke his heart. Yeah, he betrayed
he's annoyed.
him.
He's like, you got laid.
You got laid. What did you think I was doing with all these other women? What?
Just cuddling them.
The thing is, Prince storms out, and I was confused as to like, what are we supposed to be feeling here? Are we supposed to be rooting for the romance? Are we supposed to be on Tricky's side? Who is the good guy here? Like, it's kind of like, it's nice that, even though the relationship is atrocious, like I guess it's nice that these two people have found each other and they've quote unquote fallen in love. But like, Tricky has been kind of screwed over as well. But at the same time, his getting together with Mary was going to be through commerce reasons, that they were supposed to get something out of it. But then that's why Prince met her in the first place. So I don't know whose side I'm supposed to be on. It's kind of like. And even then, if it is like, oh, Christopher, if he just said to Tricky, like, look, I know this was the way things were set up, but I genuinely have feelings for this woman now, and I want to pursue her, maybe Tricky would have gone, okay, fine. But I just don't know what we're supposed to be, whose side we're supposed to be on. Like, it's...
No, I don't get that for any scene in the movie. Like, are we supposed to like Prince?
It's kind of
like... Is Christopher the hero?
Yeah, it's kind of like, even, in The Sopranos, like, Tony Soprano's a horrible monster of a man, but you're on his side because he's charismatic and he's interesting and he's well performed, and you're like, oh, I'm Team Tony because he's the main character. Where in this one, it's just like, I hate all these people. I don't know whose side I'm on. I don't care. Like, it could have been like all these people could get mowed down and some horrific, machine gun just going off randomly. So somebody's just firing a machine gun in the air, and these guys got taken out. I'll be like, yeah, fine. That's the end of the movie. Well, at least it was shorter than I thought it was going to be. It's. To be fair, I would be actually devastated if something happened to Tricky. I'm on Tricky's side just by the fact that like I can stand the
You're like, I'm not.
I am out.
In the beginning, when they do the voiceover thing, I feel like maybe they added that in later. Like maybe they through this whole thing. We're supposed to understand that they're falling in love with each other, and maybe that wasn't made clear in the movie, and they were like, go back to the beginning. Say that this guy fell in love with one woman or something. And they've told us that in the beginning, and that kind of makes it even more ridiculous, because you're supposed to see two people falling in love with each other, and it just doesn't work the whole time. But, the part with him like actually falling for her when it was supposed to just be a conquest kind of reminded me of like Dangerous Liaisons or something.
Oh
yeah.
Have you guys seen the one with John Malkovich?
I saw it a long time ago. Yeah, I just remember I remember him
ages.
Malkovich trying to be sexy, but it just been creepy because it's John Malkovich. It's default mode.
Yeah, at the end of Dangerous Liaisons, he falls for her accidentally, which I don't know if that's what's supposed to happen in this, but I'm like, I don't care. It's not tragic to me. He was still a jerk. Like, and that's kind of how I felt in this too.
But you can clearly tell we keep talking about him dying and we haven't got there. You can tell he really wants you to be upset as the viewer when he's lying there bleeding.
Yeah.
Well, he rescued her from the terrible life of inheriting $50 million and marrying a thing, and she was trapped in that life where she seemed like she could do whatever she wanted as long as she wasn't dating a poor person, I guess. But yeah, she was really held back by being uptight, especially that part where she was playing the drums and what?
Naked as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It is though. Again, it is Titanic. That's ostensibly. I keep saying ostensibly here, but I don't know why. But like, that is the plotline of Titanic. It's like, yeah, Kate Winslet could have married Billy Zane and had a big, rich life of luxury, but she met this poor peasant guy, and then he died, and that was the end of that.
They actually like had a chemistry, a bond. He was nice.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like that's the thing. If Prince was a nice guy, you'd be like, oh yeah, like he is rescuing her from this horrible thing. But with how it stands from both parties, like both options are bad. So pick the bad option with the money.
Instead of going with the, and as Tricky refers to him, the selfish son of a biscuit eater. Which was another one of like, this must have been written by a 6-year-old, because like,
yeah.
But then it's like, what they trying to keep the insults is like PG, because we want to get like a low rating so we can make more money. And then like they forgot like, oh yeah, there's a scene where like Prince sneaks into this woman's bedroom and it's just kind of just priming her under the covers, and it turns out to be the wrong woman, and then it's just like, that wouldn't be in a PG movie. So why are you censoring the language, but then you're just having this guy shagging people left, right, and center? It's entirely about sex. This movie, people.
This movie. So we should probably move on to the end, I guess, even though we've talked about it 50 times already.
So now you guys are on a schedule, so we'll try to tear through to the end of this here. But
okay.
Yeah, we get to one point then Tricky blows the con by letting. He lets Mary know that them just getting with her for money. Her and Christopher fall out again. There's a whole big and there's a bit where he meets up with Stephen Burkoff's mistress, and then she tells him where Mary is, and then she gives him this real like, good luck, Christopher, as if everyone's just in awe of him now. I was like, this guy is an asshole. Why do you get him?
How has he won her over? Yeah.
Save another woman from my kind of life.
And then he speeds off in a car whose the license plate of the car is love. I've noticed that at one point.
Yeah.
It seems to be now they're going for a reference to The Graduate, because this is like, oh, it's him speeding instead of trying to stop the wedding. He's ostensibly, well, God damn it, I keep saying ostensibly. He's trying to go and prevent Mary from getting on a plane to go and marry a guy. So that is kind of like just the end of The Graduate. And
but then I just think of The Simpsons. Anytime a wedding's mentioned, I just keep thinking of Grandpa.
Mrs.
Booth. Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't want to marry either. Hot diggity damn, that's good enough for me.
That's good enough for me.
But and yeah, all the interactions then is like, oh, I love you. No, you don't. Then I hate you. What's going on? At one point, then
every time.
You make the massive discovery that the Prince song "Kiss" is from this movie, because it just pops on the soundtrack at one point.
Yeah.
And then you remember, like, oh yeah, one of the outfits he was wearing earlier is the outfit he wears in that video. So I guess they just filmed it at the same time. Oh god,
Maybe the whole thing happened because he was filming the music video and was just like, what if we just did a feature?
Just keep going.
Okay, cool.
We've got some ideas.
I would say though, I've seen that. I actually know the song "Kiss" mostly from. I think before I knew it was a Prince song, I knew there's like a Tom Jones did a cover of it. So I've seen it.
God.
I've seen it sang in a different way, where it's him doing the "You don't have to be beautiful," and it's going that big, massive Tom Jones. But when you hear the original Prince vocals, that sounds like that must have been tough for anybody to sing, because he's reaching like a vocal register there that's just like beyond human endurance. Because even like at the end, when I was like, why are you doing this to yourself, Prince? It's as if he just wrote that to be like, I want to see if I can sing in this register for an entire song. And then he just turned out at the end, yeah, I can. That's a single now. Yeah.
He was the master of that kind of thing.
Yeah, he used his voice like it was an instrument. Like he was trying to pick notes off of like a, the lowest frets on the guitar or something.
Oh, it's wonderful. Like, I know we've spent all this time mocking the movie, but you can't mock Prince.
No, you can't.
That's how I felt. I was like, I don't want to dog Prince because I felt
I mean, speak for yourself.
I don't want to clown him. I don't want to dog him.
Because, respect. He was an amazing musician, and he makes a lot of really incredible... He made a lot of really incredible music.
Yep.
That is the kind of every time a song comes on. Again, it was with Girls and Boys when that kicked in for me. I was like, oh, that's right. This guy, Prince, is talented. He was an insanely talented man. It's just happened.
Not a very good actor.
Yeah, this acting or directing a movie was not his forte, but he could do other stuff.
Dialogue writing.
But at one point then we get he flat out kidnaps Mary at one point. He just takes off in the car with her when she's refusing to go with him. And then at one point Tricky gets beaten up by Steven Berkoff's thugs. And I remember for one bit I think he sneezes on the guy's tie. And the actor literally goes, "Oh no, my new tie!"
It's a whole Three Stooges.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, look over here! Fly in your shirt. Bang, bang, boom. Which guy, huh?
Yeah, and there's no tension, and it's all just like these because they're all kind of old men as well. The goons he sends, so there's no threat. And then
one of those guys was originally cast as the building manager.
But and then at one point. You're under the impression that Christopher and Mary are now officially together and they've fallen in love, and then he ditches her, and he just leaves a note saying, "Yeah, I'm gone now," and you're like, oh, at least this is the end of the movie, and then it turns out no, it's not. There's like another 20 minutes left.
Good God.
Tricky escapes the old men goons. He meets up with Prince. Was it "You ever had your ass kicked for breakfast" is a line of dialogue. He's now Tricky and the landlady are now like a comedy duo. Prince goes to try to save Mary, tries to meet up with her. Steven Berkoff shows up in a boat, and he orders Prince to be shot, and Christopher is shot, and he dies. And we're like, oh, thank God.
But Tricky's dialogue and acting.
Oh, yeah.
When he sees his friend dying is just the best / worst thing ever. Yeah. I loved it. I had to watch it 3 times. It's insane.
It's kind of like a guy who's put on maybe a $20 bet. Where he's just like, please God, please just let me get this one thing. Please God,
please don't take him.
Yeah.
No, he can't go.
Yeah, it's good. Damn it, Chris.
Not Chris.
And the way that whole thing was shot, I kept imagining. I thought we were going to see Prince's body rise into the air and lift into the heavens. It looked like he was going to ascend.
Or like the end of Moonwalker when Michael Jackson turns into a robot out of nowhere and then turns into a spaceship and flies away. And you're just like, oh, what?
He just turns into a symbol.
Oh, that would have been amazing if he turned into the symbol. And then the symbol shot into Steven Berkoff's boat and blew it up.
Oh my God. Well, that would be such a better film.
And at one point then, Steven Berkoff tries to get Mary to come with him, and then she says, "I'm going with Christopher." And I was like, does she know that he's dead? Or is it as a suicide thing? Or that's a very dark note to end on. Like, I know it's dark already, that it's like, he's been shot.
That's it for Kristen, what's her name?
Scott Thomas.
Kristen Scott Thomas, everybody.
Hey.
That's a wrap.
I should note, apparently, they cuddle, because the last thing he says is, "We had fun, didn't we?" No. Mm-hmm. No, you didn't. No. I didn't have fun watching it. You didn't look like you're having fun doing the relationship.
And we got fun.
And then, apparently, though, that was supposed to be alluding to the opening line of the film, which he was supposed to say that to, I think it was to Tricky, or maybe it was to, another woman or something, but apparently there was a cut scene where he says, the first line of dialogue he has is, "We had fun, didn't we?" And then they cut it, so at the end, it's just like, yeah, that's what he said.
That would have been good if it had been a callback to earlier.
I thought it did say it on one of the notes that he left on somebody's pillow.
Actually, I've only just thought of this. You say he does leave notes on pillows. Sorry, but there's a very old British. I'll translate commercial for chocolates called Dairy Milk. It's not Dairy Milk. It's a Cadbury's one. What is it, Niall? Where they milk tray.
Oh yeah,
it's Dairy Milk tray. And the guy, this like sexy sort of guy, would go into a woman's window at night and leave a box of chocolates on her pillow. It's just like, it was a very Prince thing to do. And that reminded me of it when he leaves the note.
I think at one point I came across the fact that, like, this is unrelated, but like, I think I was going through like I went down a YouTube hole at one point and I found like an old Dairy Milk advert or a milk tray advert. And I remember apparently they used the song Drugs by Talking Heads in it. Which, if you've heard, is like a really weird, like ethereal, bizarre, like post-punk new waves, very
How did they get Talking Heads on a candy commercial?
It's like, but you're not hearing, like, it's not David Byrne coming out going, there's no vocals, but it is like a weird bit of keyboard, and it's very atmospheric, and you hear it on the album, it's this very sort of dark, weird song. And then apparently the milk tray people were like, it's like that suits the mood we're going for.
Perfect.
Sexy man comes through window.
That's funny because recently I showed Joel an old commercial that I remembered that was for Nestle chocolate. And I was like, what did they want from us? Because it's like this song that's like really like sensual and slow and like mysterious, and
they wanted us to do things to the chocolate.
I think I said something like we were just kids. Like, what were we supposed to do with this commercial?
We do have a thing
that's
like
for
that.
The parents watching.
Like, but that's the end of the movie. Is that Christopher's dead, and then at one point it goes up to heaven, and Prince sings the song Mountains. And we're like, is he in heaven, or is this our...
He's playing the maracas. It's got to be heaven.
Yeah. And it seems as if, like, I guess it's we call them the new power generation or something that's behind them. But
yeah,
it looks like a bunch of miserable people, so I guess maybe...
Everybody was there, and the lady playing the piano especially didn't look happy.
This was the only part I was happy. That it was over and we had a song.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Before you leave, I might as well ask you, would you recommend Under the Cherry Moon to a discerning viewer?
Go ahead, Sarah. What would you say?
There are a few people who I would tell to watch this movie just because it's so ridiculous, or because they like music, or that kind of thing. But otherwise, no. I mean, you kind of have to see it to believe it, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to put it on anybody else.
I apologize again.
No, it's okay. It was fun. It was crazy.
Do you both feel the same about it then?
I kind of feel like this is like The Ring. Like, if I don't hand it off to 7 people, I'm going to die. So I'm going to like tell people like, oh, you should totally watch it. And then they'll be like, that movie was so bad. Why did you tell me? Because I wanted you to suffer like I did.
And like, then as soon as you finish watching it, the phone rings and it's just Prince insulting you down the line.
Yeah.
Calling you a cabbage head.
Yeah, it just whispers, cabbage head.
7 days, you cabbage head.
Likewise, I wouldn't recommend this in the slightest. At least Purple Rain has something going for it. Like, okay, it's not a good movie, but there's some elements in there that are interesting. The music's great. It's one of my favorite, if you want to call it a pop record. I mean, it's not really pop, is it? It's like rock. It's everything. It's got one of the best pop records ever as the soundtrack. The music's good, but most of it isn't in the film. Like, if you listen to the CD and stuff. So no, nothing in this is good. I don't even think in some ways that it's so bad it's good. It's just bad.
Oh no, it is just it. I would say avoid. It's very much like the only thing I thought worthwhile in it was Tricky, and that's only because it's Jerome. We already enjoyed him so much in Purple Rain, so it's like you got a little bit more of him, but but on the upside, John, I'm certain that Prince's next film, Graffiti Bridge, is going to be when he rectifies everything.
Yep. Oh, of course.
That's going to be a masterpiece. I think it's all uphill from here. The sun is going to shine on us once again.
Hey,
I hope it does, guys.
The kid is back.
Oh yeah. Well, join us for that one, everyone. But before we do go into the dark, dark night and head back to our Gotham lair, would you guys like to tell our listeners where they can find you and your show?
If you want to hear me and Sarah and our co-host Aaron talk about science fiction and fantasy movies, some of them, we've seen some bad ones, just as bad as this. No Such Thing comes to mind. That's a movie I wouldn't wish on anyone.
Oh, I need to see that one.
You can listen to us every week on Please Don't Send Me Into Outer Space. New movies every week, and science fiction and fantasy movies.
Yeah, make sure you do, because it's a great show, and there's loads of hilarious movies that have extended my list of things to watch tenfold. Absolutely. And I'm sure you know where to find us, but just in case you don't, for some bizarre reason, we are everywhere. We're all over the internet. We are on Twitter at BatMinute89 still. I might update that. I'll keep you all informed if I change it to just BatMinute. We're on Facebook at the BatMinute89 Listeners Society. And, look us up on iTunes. Give us a rate, a review, and a subscription. It would be very helpful. Thank you. But join us again soon, because as Niall alluded to there, we will be back for Graffiti Bridge. Ooh, that's going to be good. Are you excited?
Sure, yeah.
It can't go wrong.
It can't get any worse, right? It cannot get any worse.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.